Welcome to the Contrarians and to our topic. It's a 1-2 punch discussion. You don't know what that is? You'll figure it out here shortly. Let's get started. The panel's here. Let's do it. Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we have a splendid panel. I say that all the time, and I say that all the time. But tonight we have Rand Kelly, we've got Andrew, we got David, we've got the Elder of Rock, and we also have Jeff Halverson here. We have a great topic tonight. We're talking 1-2 punches. So what we mean by that are great first and second albums. You know, not everybody can pull that off. Some of these records, some of these bands that we don't talk about could have had a sophomore slump, but there's no sophomore slumps here. So we're looking at 1-2 punches, first and second albums. We've got 5 choices, and we're going to go 2, 2, and 1. And I'm going to go as I see it. So Rand's going to start us off, and then we're going to go to Andrew, David, Elder, Jeff, and loop around. So, gentlemen, nice to see you. Merry Christmas. Nice to see everybody. Hope everyone had a good holiday.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. You don't sound very convincing, but that's okay.
My voice is not very good today. Of course, I'm drinking eggnog. It kind of softens everything out.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Well, I'm glad everyone's here. So, Rand, why don't you start us off with your first 2 choices? And don't forget, if you don't have anything to show, I'm going to put all the images in later, so no worries.
All right. Well, I do, because I'm the propaholic.
Of course.
Anyways, this will be number 1. I'm not number 1, but
that's our eyes can see it.
Number 5. That was a great album. I've told this story many times. I'm not going to tell it again, but the first time I listened to the whole thing with the music teacher.
When you were in school, right?
Yeah.
Your music teacher played it.
Yeah, we had all the instruments out and stuff, and he goes, "We're not going to play. We're listening to this album, start to finish." And you can imagine the girls during freeform guitar. They're looking around at each other, going, "What the hell is this?" This was 1970, right? But it was amazing. So I could list off like some of my favorite tunes. Is that what you want to do, or just kind of move on? Or
no, you do whatever you want to do, Rand. I don't give a crap.
Introduction was mind blowing. I mean, that song. It's a band saying, "Here's what we do. Hope you like it." You know what I mean? And it's amazing. And it's just really amazing prog. This is when Chicago was a prog band, Chicago Transit Authority. But everything on here is great. They had a hit single on the radio. Does anybody really know what time it is? Then Beginnings came on. And Question 67 and 68 was never really a hit single. They'll tell you that on the Live Carnegie Hall album. But I love that song. Listen's great. Poem 58 is probably the best thing they've ever done. Freeform guitar. As a guitar player who wanted a Strat so bad with a whammy bar, love it. South California Purples is really great because they do a little bit of I Am the Walrus in it. I'm a Man is a Spencer Davis group song that Stevie Winwood made a big hit, and they do a great job on this. Liberation is just absolutely out of this world. The last song, it's almost 15 minutes long, and they just blow like a jazz band. It's just amazing. And also, any guitar players here ever try to get feedback an octave high in B flat on the 5th, which is an F?
Since 1970, no.
Terry Kath can do it.
Well, I've
never been able to do it. I don't know how he did it. I mean, I think it's impossible. All right. Anyways, then the next one was just called Chicago.
Yeah.
But then later on, way down the road, they changed it to Chicago 2. This is the Steven Wilson remix. And by the way, if you're going to get this album, get this. The Steven Wilson remix is just phenomenal compared to the original.
Well, the original sounded horrible.
Huh?
The original sounded horrible.
Yeah, pretty murky, huh? So, but this one has a lot of really great songs. Of course, it has 25 or 64, which is the song that pretty much put them on the map. And it's just a great, great album. I love all four sides of this. And the Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan, that talk about a Supper's Ready type suite 2 years before Supper's Ready. It's pretty amazing. 1970. I love it.
Rand, I have a question real quick.
So that's one, right?
I have a question. Did Steven Wilson do a remix of the debut album? No. I don't know. He did not. Okay.
No, he was hired to do a remix.
Okay.
He was hired to do a remix of the second album because so many audiophiles kept saying, this needs work. There's something wrong with this record. I never noticed it myself because I'm just not that kind of, I don't know. I'm not that kind of an audiophile. I don't really have expensive equipment because I put all my money into keyboards and Gibson guitars and stuff like that. But my God, I just think that Steven Wilson remix, it just comes to life.
If you get the 180 vinyl re-release, is that the Steven Wilson mix? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know because I don't have any Chicago vinyl except for the Carnegie Hall album. I did save that.
Steven Wilson, he also, just as an aside, he also remixed Black Sabbath's Technical Ecstasy album, and it's in the deluxe box set. I have it, and it sounds really good.
Did he do any of the other box sets?
No, but he did Aqualung, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I've got that.
I think he did a Yes album, too. Didn't he remix a Yes album?
Yeah.
He remixed
a lot of Yes albums. They have they call the Steven Wilson remixes. They put it in a big box set that I bought, LPs, and it's the Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge, Relayer.
I do want to mention this while we're talking. So you brought up Jethro Tull. I know we're on a tangent, but we're just talking music, so it doesn't matter. That Jethro Tull box set that you're talking about, of course, they repressed a lot of those because they went out of print and, everybody was wanting more, so they repressed them. You can go out and get that Jethro Tull Aqualung. I think it's $33, maybe $35 on Amazon right now.
For the whole the box set Aqualung?
Yes.
Wow.
It's got like 4 CDs or whatever. I bought it.
I can't remember. Version though.
Well, I don't care about the vinyl version. Yeah, but we're talking the Steven Wilson mix. The box set's only on CD. So,
no, I think it's on vinyl too.
Anybody know? I don't know.
They only reissued, as far as I know, Grant, they only reissued Thick as a Brick because it went out of print first and it was going for $700 on the internet. Mm-hmm. Ian Anderson just thought that was atrocious. So he decided to let them re-release Thick as a Brick. I got it for $48.
They did all of them because Aqualung's up there for like 33. Stand-ups on there. There's a whole, you name it.
Well, I paid $285 for my Aqualung, so
I think those came out on vinyl.
Screwed, huh?
I think those came out on vinyl,
but not with everything. Not with like 4 CDs.
I feel like I've got Steven Wilson's Thick as a Brick and Aqualung, but maybe not. I don't know. Someone in the comments might know. But
by the way, before I forget, I just did one pair. Right, I got another pair to do.
You got another pair to go. We were on a tangent, Rand.
We were on a tangent.
We're tangenting.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a toss-up now which one to go to next. I'm not sure, but...
go ahead, pick one.
Shoot.
It doesn't matter.
Well, no, I know. I'm just going to go ahead and do these then.
Okay.
I think the first 2 of these are excellent.
Oh, King's X?
King's X, Out of the Silent Planet, 1988. And the follow-up is Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, 1989. I think these are incredible albums. They're not my favorite because I like 4 of the best, but with this criteria where you got to do the first 2, these are masterpieces. This is the most ignored band when it comes to cable music channels and stuff like that, or heavy metal stations like we got in my town of Redding, California. There's a heavy metal station here. They never play King's X. Never. I've never heard them, not once. So I gave up trying to listen to it. But they sure play a lot of crap I don't like. But anyways, yeah, I think these are awesome, and they got great covers too. You know, you're always talking about album covers, right, Grant? I think both these covers are really good.
I'd love to talk about more than album covers, but that's what we talk about.
I'm talking about on the album cover show, but there's no reason to rattle off all these songs because they're all great.
Right.
To me, King's X can do no wrong. I like everything they do.
All right, cool.
Yeah, King's X were one of those bands I think just people never knew quite how to categorize them. They were heavy, but then they were very melodic. They were kind of retro a little bit, you know, and then.
Well, their goal was to be the heavy metal Beatles.
Yeah.
And that's what they kind of sound like, the three-part harmonies and stuff. And they're a very unique band. I mean, that band that Grant played last night on his Christmas show, Lollipop Factory.
Yeah.
They sounded a lot like King's X. I fell in love with that. I looked them up on Amazon Music because I want to listen to that entire album.
King's X is a Christian band, right?
No.
No,
are they Christian in like a Striper way or a U2?
No. That's what hurt them, Andrew. People said exactly what you were saying.
That's what I always heard.
No, they're not really.
It's not true, but it's a rumor that got started because one member of the band told everybody he was a Christian. Then they went and did an interview with Contemporary Christian Music magazine, and Doug Pinnick came out in that magazine and said, "I'm gay."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what fucked them up. That's really what I think. Because the Christian community went insane. Because, you know, they're so intolerant.
All right, let's not go religion.
Let's not go down that road too
we
much.
Are,
but what
we're
I'm
non-political,
this is
non-religious here in the Contrarians.
Yeah, they are ignored, and it's a shame.
Andrew's right. This band is ignored, and nobody can figure out why.
Yeah, they're so ignored. Like they played around here where I live not too long ago. I didn't even know it till after they played. So I don't know. It's like I saw.
There's some kind of cruise coming up, a metal cruise. I saw the lineup for it. King's X is like in the middle of the whole thing, and I can't
at least they have a gig. At least they have a gig.
Oh,
and they outlasted all the bands that copied them. So you know, hey, more power to them.
All right, cool. So King's X. Let's keep it going, or we're going to be here all night.
You can edit all that out if you want to, Grant.
No,
we're on tangents. This is all right.
It's a good tangent, but let's keep going. Andrew, what's your
all right,
first two?
All right, I'm going in chronological order because this topic, there was a lot to choose from. But I'm going to go all the way back to 1962. And I only have the bad reissue cover of Surf and Safari, but the original cover is on the back of it, though. The first two Beach Boys albums, you know, sometimes people think of the Beach Boys like their genius stuff starts with Pet Sounds, but it actually doesn't. If you listen to these Surf and Safari is a little like just kind of surf rock stuff, but once you get into Surfin' USA and you get stuff like The Lonely Sea, you get their version of Miserlou, Lana, I mean...
Don't forget Farmer's Daughter.
Well, Farmer's Daughter is an amazing song. Noble Surfer, every song on this album is good. And this is a vinyl reissue where side one is in mono and side two is in stereo. The mono sounds much better, just because it was meant to be recorded that way. So the first two Beach Boys albums are my initial one. But I will say, if you think that the Beach Boys' genius just starts with, I mean, I guess maybe today, I would say no, go back to the stuff that you might think is silly surf rock, and there's a lot of pretty ingenious stuff in there.
But I think on Beach Boys today, that's where things really started to take off.
I agree.
Summer Days, you know.
I mean, I think that's where kind of the entire thing is like genius of Brian Wilson. But I think when you go in like Elvis Costello, is it before it gets weird and spooky and it's fun and kooky? I think during the fun and kooky times of the Beach Boys, there's still like those great moments of genius, and the harmonies are always great. I mean, it's
Chuck Britz did all the stereo mixes and Brian did all the mono mixes then.
Yeah, I mean, the mono mixes are better. And it's
I don't think Chuck did a bad job. I mean, Chuck's...
no, but it's funny because when the mono mixes you crank up and they sound like they were meant to be mono. And I don't know. If you get the reissue of Surfing USA and side 1 is mono, side 2 is stereo, and you can do this test yourself in your house. But crank them both up and they're both, I mean, they're both obviously really good, but I really like Beach Boys in mono. It's something about those harmonies kind of all blend together. It's almost like it's meant to be in mono.
And if you're a purist, you want
those mono mixes were made. Those mono mixes were made for 62 Falcons with a speaker in the middle of the dashboard.
Yeah,
one speaker.
Yeah,
that's why it was mono. Sounded great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was mixed for AM radio.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right. And my next pair is going to be pretty an obvious choice. Doors' Debut, which is one of the most amazing albums of all time. And maybe one of the second most amazing albums of all time, Strange Days. The first three, and if we were doing 1, 2, 3 punch, Waiting for the Sun could also equally go in. These first 3 Doors albums are, I mean, and this might be a controversial thing, but I feel like once we get to Soft Parade, the Doors lose the plot of what they're doing. These first 3 albums are. They're just the sound, the music, Manzarek's keyboard, Morrison's silly poetry. It all works together, all in one thing. And the first 3 albums are just ingenious, but especially these first 2. I mean, they're just great. I mean, you can listen to them back to back almost as a double album, and these are amazing. So this is my first 2 when we're in the '60s decade.
Yeah, I think.
Did you notice that Strange Days is the only album they put out without themselves on the cover?
Oh yeah, you know what? I've never thought of that before.
I thought about it the other day.
Well, unless you count what's the Full Circle or whatever that.
But they're on the cover because there's that little picture.
Oh, are they on that?
Yeah, but I was talking about the Jim Morrison era.
Yeah.
I just thought it was weird they put all the circus freaks on the cover.
Yeah, but there's still the Doors pictures on there. They're still on the front.
The people themselves?
No, isn't there a poster on the front?
Yep.
Yeah, see, they're on the cover.
Yep, they're right there.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the same thing.
I count it as the same thing, Rand.
Doesn't count.
It counts, Elder. All right, thank you, Andrew. That's awesome. Let's throw it over to David. David, what's your first 2 picks?
All right, I'm gonna get in the time machine and go to the place I usually go when I'm on these panels, which is right back to the '80s, and I'm gonna start with sort of a mid '80s band that kind of lumped in with everything that was going on at the time, which to me isn't bad, but sometimes gets sort of a bad rep. But I'm gonna go with Tesla. So we've got the debut album, Mechanical Resonance, and then their follow. Great Radio Controversy. So Tesla's a band that, is sort of a hard rock metal band from the 80s, but also kind of never leaned too far into the visual aspect of things. Kind of a jeans and t-shirt, straight ahead rock kind of band. I think maybe slightly underrated. The debut album goes platinum even without sort of the big power ballad that was driving a lot of the records of that era. Obviously the second record has Love Song, which is the big ballad like everybody else had. So you've got a double platinum, but you've got 2 really strong records out of the gate. I think the second record is a little more bluesy, if for lack of a better term. I think similar in a sense of a band like Cinderella that really has, a bluesy root to them. But, the first record is certainly a little more, I think Cinderella probably is a little more, or maybe a lot more leaned into the visual aspect of the glam in the first record, even though sonically it probably was less so. But then certainly by their second record, it's really, kind of the direction that when I think of Cinderella, right, the Encore Winter record. But I think Tesla's similar. Obviously they've got a bunch of hits on both those hits, meaning, a lot of radio airplay. Certainly, MTV videos were in the time of MTV.
Yeah.
So 86 and 89, certainly three years in between the two records is sort of interesting. But I mean, you've got, again, I thought was interesting was the strong record out of the gate that was able to ship platinum or to sell platinum without the big ballads. So I think Tesla's slightly underrated, maybe not as underrated as a band like King's X, but certainly, maybe better than most remember. So good music. They're still out there, but making records. But I think those first two really are definitive for them. And then secondly, I'm going to stay in the decade, but go back a little bit. And I'm going to go with Michael Schenker. So Schenker leaves UFO, and then we have the debut Michael Schenker group, and then the MSG record that follow up. I mean, I think these two really are, while there's some really great material on the records that follow, I think those two records really top to bottom are some of the strongest material of his career. I think certainly the second record, the MSG record, he adds Cozy Powell on drums, which is, I like anything usually when I can listen to Cozy Powell. But I mean, those records, where they 80 and 81, something like that, 80 and 81. So certainly back-to-back years. And there's probably a half a dozen songs on those albums, that are still staples in the live set. So I think those early Schenker albums, the debut and then the MSG record, I think are two really phenomenal records that maybe don't get talked about enough in the pantheon of rock. So that's my second choice. Michael Schenker, his debut solo, and then MSG, the follow-up.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, David. Let's throw it over to the Elder of Rock.
All right. Well, my first two are going to probably be a little obvious, but you can't deny that they were great. I'm going with Black Sabbath and Paranoid. Their debut, and Paranoid being, Black Sabbath, obviously the debut, many consider to be the first heavy metal album, and then Paranoid, you still hear those songs a lot on the radio and stuff today and in movies and things like that. And Black Sabbath kind of also did it twice when they got Dio. They did a great first and second album with Dio.
Yeah.
But so those two there, can't deny it. And it was invention of heavy metal. So there you go. And then the next two are going to be Iron Maiden's debut and Killers. Iron Maiden, the first album had that really good raw production type to it, and it was seen as kind of a punk kind of thing. And then they got Martin Birch as their producer, and they come up with Killers and kind of streamlined it into more of a heavy metal thing, but it still had a punk edge to it, I think, because of Paul Di'Anno. Those are my first ones.
All right, cool. Thank you, Mr. Rock. All right. All right, Jeff, what you got? What's your first two?
Boy, I wish the elder knew what he was talking about. He just stole two of mine.
Oh.
Nice job. I'd already dropped Sabbath because I figured it was obvious, but I did actually go for, I made this a little harder on myself than I probably needed to. I wanted to make sure that I left out anything where there's only two albums in the first place. And anything where the third album's just as good doesn't really count for me. It can be good. I can prefer it to the first two, but it would have to be different in one way or another. So, and I think Maiden fits that bill entirely because I never did anything like the first two albums again. And honestly, I love the first two albums more than probably the combined output of the rest of the band, which I respect. It's a good band, but I really liked Paul Di'Anno. I'm more interested in a band that has his vocals that are very rough, but then have kind of the musicianship of Maiden. The rest of it with Bruce. I mean, I love Bruce and I like his solo stuff, but it's a little proggier than I really want. So I don't know. Let's slight expounding on the topic of Maiden. So I will then pick another one that's obvious. The first two Boston albums. I know there are people out there that maybe don't look back so much, and I'm sure we're all in one way or another a little sick of the debut just because it's been this 800-pound gorilla of an album since what, 1977? I mean, we are all overexposed to it now, but I remember it when it was relatively new, not when it first came out, I don't think, but it was still relatively new, and it just blew everybody away with how good it sounded. The cover was cool. I actually should have mentioned it on the favorite album covers show, because that cover just, it ruled. That's really just what it is. And I think Don't Look Back had, they kept going on that same theme. And then after that, I really lost interest. Did give me an idea for a different sort of show, though. There's kind of the obvious, the first two albums or the first couple albums suck. Like there are some bands that I love that I couldn't say April Wine here with a straight face. I mean, they kind of picked it up on the third album.
Watch it, Jeff.
Hey, the first two albums,
Watch
I don't dislike them, but the rest of the stuff is better.
Well, I think they improved over time. Once they got the classic lineup together, everything clicked. But I don't think April Wine actually ever put out a bad record.
Right, but it's not a 1-2 punch kind of thing.
Well, not on the second album, no.
Right, exactly. And that's what we're talking about here. But the other thing is something kind of like a Hawkwind kind of deal where they knew what they wanted to be out of the gate.
Uh-huh.
You can tell by listening to the first Hawkwind album and then listening to everything else. Hawkwind had it figured out. They weren't fiddling around trying to figure it out like, say, Crocus, who shifted directions twice and then eventually went its third way. But it just wasn't very strong. I mean, I like the first Hawkwind album just fine, but that would be a good candidate for that kind of a show where they're not, they know what they want to do, but they take a while to realize it. Slow starters, something like that.
Yeah, I can think of some examples where they weren't slow starters really easily. Like their whole catalog's really solid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Fully realized out of the gate.
Right, but I'm sort of interested in the ones where they knew where they wanted to go. They just didn't get there for a while. They tried, and then they refined on it, and then they eventually. Priest would probably be another example. But anyway, that's a different show. That's a totally different.
But that's a good idea, though, Jeff.
Write it down.
Write it down. I don't have a pen.
All right. Well, maybe I'll remember to.
Gee, if we recorded it here, I'll write it down when I have to put this together. So there you go.
Grant, while I'm talking, go get a pen.
No, it's recorded. I can write it down later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As he's editing
the technology.
So there are some advantages to recording.
All right. So
that's the advantage.
That is too, and I've taken up nearly as much time as Rand did.
Which is practically impossible
nobody can
to
do that.
Only Rand. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Good ideas. Excellent choices. Mr. Kelly, what's your next two?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to say, Dave, when you showed that second MSG, mine looks like this.
Yeah, I think that's a better cover than the other one.
That's the back cover of this. They just used the same back cover. But anyways, yeah, I bought the original album in 1981. Still got it. Okay, so I'm going to go into a band. See if anybody can recognize this.
Pink
Does anybody
Floyd.
know what this is?
Pink Floyd.
Okay, you knew, huh? Okay.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
mono stereo Piper.
This is Piper at the Gates of Dawn box set.
Oh, I love that album.
I did some sort of a trade deal with a friend of mine, and I ended up getting this. This is pretty cool. I didn't really look in there and see what was going on.
Wow.
There's all kinds of crap in there. But anyways, yeah, this is an awesome album. This is one of Ian Anderson's favorite records. He said it was like their truly progressive album was the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. He said it changed everything for him.
It's a great record.
Of course,
I'll give you that.
Syd Barrett, absolute genius, tragic end to the genius, but the guy was amazing, and I love that album. I love every song on it. They're great. They're great. And then the second one would be, and of course I have the Shining On box set version, but this is A Saucer Full of Secrets. And I love this album a lot. My favorite song is the title song. Set the Controls for the Heart of Sun is great. Love, Let There Be Light. That opening bass on the Rickenbacker is, I think, some of the best playing Waters ever did. That first song. But yeah, this is great. I just love those two first Pink Floyd. Even though I started with metal, it was.
How long did he use a Rickenbacker?
I don't know, but on the back of Umbagummi, you could see a Fender and a Rickenbacker.
Yeah, probably
But
that was probably the end, 69, probably.
But yeah, by the time they did the Pompeii movie, it was just a Fender Precision. Rickenbacker was history. Maybe it got stolen. I don't know. There are a lot of famous bass players that tried those out and didn't like them. Greg Lake hated it. He said he could bend the neck while he was playing. He thought it was flimsy. Mr. Macho, Greg Lake.
Well, so did Pete from the Kinks. He said he had issues with his.
Well, speaking of Greg Lake, since I brought him up, this is the Steven Wilson kind of like box set kind of thing. This thing is huge. It just keeps opening and opening. And
so Steven Wilson remixed that?
Yeah.
See, that didn't need remixed. I just don't get it.
I think he just, actually, I don't know if it's he had to do it to do a 5.1 mix.
Oh, yeah.
But he did a new 2012 stereo mix. And then he did the 5.1 mix. And then he did stereo 2. He
remixed it. But that record, I think that record
it sounds incredible.
That record sounded great anyway, so I don't know.
Steven Wilson is like the Midas of sound. The guy is amazing. Everything he touches turns to gold. And of course, the second one was the first one I ever heard by these guys. And of course, this just blew my mind. Another one. This one's kind of hard to find, I think. But Steven Wilson parted with Emerson, Lake and Palmer because there's a song on here that nobody could decide who wrote it or who's even singing on it. It's a weird tune. I can't remember the name of it now. Let me see if I can find it. Unknown Ballad. Anyway, they had a big argument about it or whatever. And then Steven Wilson says, I'm not doing ELP anymore. And so Jacko Jazik started doing it. Jacko Jazik did Trilogy and brain cell surgery, and he's good too. So there's nothing wrong with him. Okay, right. So cool. I'm done.
Excellent. Thank you, Rand. All right, Andrew, what's your next two?
All right. Well, Jeff already brought this band up, but I'm going to bring them up positively. Jeff. I like the first two Judas Priest albums actually better than the rest of the catalog. I even like Rock-a-Rolla.
What?
I'm gonna represent with the Hero album, which is actually a fusion of Rock-a-Rolla and Sad Wings of Destiny with one Sin After Sin song on it, which is Diamonds and Rust. I actually wish they had stayed in those first two albums that direction for their career. Sad Wings of Destiny, is one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yeah.
And I like Rock-a-Rolla. I know people, kind of crap on that album, but
I kind of like it too. It just wasn't what they became, but I did, there's some good songs on there, One for the Road and
the title track is nice, right?
Title track and so it's pretty cool, just doesn't, but definitely different from what they became though.
Yeah, I mean, you can't compare it to like Painkiller, or even British Steel, but to me, if you hand me British Steel and Sad Wings of Destiny, I'm going to choose Sad Wings of Destiny.
And Run of the Mill is like a great vocal performance.
Oh yeah, I mean
that's one of his best,
I mean, and I like it always gets described as proggy. I don't know if it's proggy. These first two albums are just more complex and not like kind of run-of-the-mill metal that they kind of became. But I mean, those first two albums, I mean, they're especially the second one are incredibly complex. But if you don't want to invest in both of those, if you get the Hero compilation, it's kind of a nice.
They just remixed Rock-a-Rolla too for the 50th anniversary.
I haven't heard it.
It sounds great. Yeah, I heard it. Yeah.
I've never heard the album at all. Nothing.
I have the CD, but it's the original mix.
Yeah,
I don't have I haven't heard the remix.
Out the remix.
But I'm not sure why it was remixed because I don't remember it sounding. I never thought when I heard it that this needs remixed. I don't know. I don't know what.
Maybe they knew people would probably check it out and buy it. It's an obscure album from them, so maybe it'll bring some curiosity to it. And people.
But it's not a bad album by any means. So Andrew, you're 100%.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's very different.
If you like 70s hard rock, then you'll probably dig it.
Yeah,
it's just very 70s hard rock. It's not metal. It's just hard rock record.
Yeah, I don't think either one of those first two albums, I would say are metal. Even the third album, I wouldn't say is metal. I mean, they really They
were just a hard rock band.
Class is when they started to really become more metal.
Yeah,
that's when.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me. I'm really.
Yeah, don't listen to Jeff at all. Anybody.
I'm really fond of Point of Entry, so my taste is.
I actually like Point of Entry.
I don't mind Point of Entry.
Yeah, in fact, it might be very contrarian to say this, but I would rather listen to Point of Entry than British Steel.
And that's another one they changed the covers to was Point of Entry.
Well, there's a UK cover and then the domestic cover, yeah.
And both of those covers suck, though.
They're both bad.
Yeah,
it didn't improve the UK cover by any means.
I kind of like the original one with the highway and the hash lines down there.
But that's the
original
cover. Yeah, right? I like that one. I think the British cover looks weird.
I have no idea what the British one looks like. I didn't know that.
It's the plane, the one out of the plane.
That one sucks. It just reminds me of having.
It looks like at the tail wing of a plane.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant image.
All right, was that too, Andrew? Sorry.
No, here's my second one.
Okay, God, we were on Judas Priest for 15 minutes.
All right, and I feel it's my role on the Contrarians to bring up this band as much as I can, but no one can deny that one of the greatest 1-2 punches of all time is U2 Boy and U2 October. These two albums are amazing albums. And once again, I think that U2 does not get the cred it needs from just straight ahead rock fans. And these albums sometimes get lumped in with new wave stuff and post-punk stuff of the 80s, but these are just really good straight ahead rock albums, both of them. I mean, is there a punk element to the first three U2 albums? Yes. But these are great albums. And, this album gets a lot of crap. And, it's got one of the worst album covers in the history. But this is a great album, too. And what's good about it is I didn't know this about this album. While they were recording it, all of Bono's lyrics he had written had gotten stolen. So he's making up words in the studio in front of the microphone, and it actually works and works better off, in some of his more pretentious lyrics. He actually has some better ones here. So Boy and October by U2, another great.
You've mentioned those records before.
I mention U2 every chance I get on the Contrarians.
I know you've talked about it before.
My role to bring more U2.
That's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I always keep telling Martin, when are we going to talk more post-punk? Because Martin loves post-punk.
Well, I asked Martin on the Q&A if he would ever do a U2 book, and he said never.
Well, probably because U2's been... What can be more... How could you write more about U2? I don't... Well, of course, he writes Judas Priest books.
There can be a Martin perspective on U2 be a really interesting book to read. Because again, like there's a real rock and almost prog aspect of U2 that doesn't ever get covered. And it's that it's what attracted Brian Eno to the band to begin with. But yeah.
All right, cool. All right, Andrew, thanks so much for yet another plug on U2. No, I'm just giving you crap. All right, David, you're up. What's your next two?
All right. Sitting solely and firmly in the 80s. We'll continue where I sit most of my time here. But I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm gonna pick a band that and I recognize they had an EP in '82, and it was before they were signed, and so I'm going to discount that, and anyone can dispute me on that. That's fine. But I like this band so much, so I'm gonna go. Where am I?
EP in '82.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with one of my favorite bands, Queensryche.
Wow,
and I'm gonna go with The Warning and Rage for Order. I think these two records are some of the best music to come out of the period. I think they were when they came out with these records, I don't know if there was anything that sounded quite like what Queensryche was doing. I mean, it was obviously a little bit proggy. It was sort of industrial. You had this dual guitars, and it's operatic, and it's kind of metal, and there's a lot of things. But I think Queensryche really developed a sound unto themselves. They weren't really, to me, sounding like anything that weren't copying anything, and they were trying to lean into a sound that existed. And I think these two records, obviously Queensryche hit a stride with Mindcrime, and then certainly Empire, where they go very, very, commercial success, right? But I think lost in that sometimes sort of the greatness of these two records. So The Warning and Rage for Order, I think 84 and 86 respectively. I think by the time they were signed, they were playing songs from that would ultimately end up on The Warning before The Warning ever was recorded and came out. So to me, for the purposes of me skirting this topic a little bit, I'm going to consider The Warning as a debut, even though we know they had the EP, EMI re-released it, and there were the bonus tracks, and the EP is fantastic, by the way. I mean, Lady Wore Black and Queen of the Reich. I mean,
oh man,
hello.
Yeah.
But to me, as far as full-length records, I don't know that there's a better 1-2 punch than those two. So I'm gonna, like I said, cheat a little bit, and I'm gonna go with Queensryche's The Warning and Rage for Order. And my next one.
Well, wait, I have to mention this while we're on Queensryche. What was it? 4 months ago, I was going through the CD bins, and I actually picked up the EP on CD. I hadn't seen that in years used. Wow. In fact, someone traded in like practically their whole catalog. What's the one? Oh, remind me, because I saw Queensryche in '86 open for Ozzy, but I can't. What's the album that's kind of surrealistic and it has like the clocks melting like a Salvador Dali cover, like out in the desert?
Is it Here in the Now Frontier?
Yes, that.
Here in the Now Frontier.
So I bought like everything that they had because someone traded like in their collection. And I went, oh, look, it's pretty cheap. I just got it. But that EP, I swear to God, when I saw the EP, I went, holy crap, there it is. Because I've been looking for it for years. Yeah, I know I could probably go online and buy it, but it's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
And the fact that I saw it sitting there right in front of me, I went, got it, So it's
nothing like finding something in the wild,
That's what it's about.
So much fun.
But yeah, that happened to me like 4 months ago, and I just mine, got it. Thank you. Yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, David, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So my second band really effectively only had 2 official releases. There's a third record that was really a collection of demos that were released after the band, was sort of finished. And this band certainly, I think, has probably more people talk about this band more now than they did in the time. And I'm going to go with Badlands. So certainly Jakey Lee, who everybody knows, comes off of the Ozzy thing. He does Badlands. I mean, I think this record is phenomenal.
And that's an expensive record too.
If you can find it, and I don't have Voodoo Highway on vinyl because that's fair, but I do have it on CD, and there it is. I mean, obviously the first album, Eric Singer on drums, and then they sort of change out after that. He, gets in with Kiss, and then you've got, Jeff from Racer X comes in and plays drums on the second record. But I mean, Ray Gillen, certainly this record, this band, a lot of controversy. The Ray Gillen stuff, probably not, certainly not the best human, but maybe one of the best singers, ever, maybe in my book. He's certainly up there in the conversation. But I mean, certainly some of the things that went on, there's a lot of controversy, and for a lot of reasons, these things will maybe never see the light of day as a re-release. So you've got I think Rock Candy re-released these things for about a day, and then they got a cease and desist. And so if you can find, I think I've got a copy of the debut on CD, but if you can find either of the Rock Candy CD reissues, they're hard to find and they're expensive if you can find them, but they were put out for about a minute and then they had to dial it back.
Also, there's something more to that. If you like the digital format, at least what I've read, because I was looking for those, and they're hard. You are 100% hard to find. But those, as far as the mastering on those, if you look on the Steve Hoffman sites, that's the preferred. Those sound better than the original CDs.
Oh, the Rock Candy reissue.
Yes. So people
Ray
want
Gillen
those if you can find them. What's that?
Was Ray Gillen an asshole? I didn't even know that.
There's so Ray Gillen. I mean, and again, there's different.
He's bad with drugs
I don't
too,
want to misspeak, but I know that there is. Jake has a different version of events than Greg, and so I don't want to misspeak. I wasn't there certainly, but I know that there's some controversy around Ray and his. Ray, as I think is common knowledge, died of AIDS, HIV, and I think there was some. I've heard there was some issues with him infecting people and didn't disclose it, and that was part of it. Now that's disputed by Greg. Who's Greg Chason, the bass player. So I don't want to misspeak here in a public forum because I wasn't there and I don't know. I know even among the band members there isn't a consensus on why these are out of print. Whether this is just some kind of vendetta by the record label, or whether there's stuff around Greg, or about Ray, but these things are locked in a vault and have never been re-released. They're not on streaming. It's just there's a lot of what's really the story. I don't know if you can say it's definitive. I don't know if anybody else has any 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I've learned a lot tonight, gentlemen. I'm just saying, but I had no idea that those were pulled.
Rock Candy
licensed them. They were out. The license expired, but they were only out like a very limited time, right?
A minute.
A minute.
Yeah. I had heard that they somehow they must have got the license from Atlantic, and then maybe Atlantic, licensed it in error and realized we shouldn't have licensed this and revote. I don't know, but I know that that run that Rock Candy did was very limited, and they're difficult to find, and
I've never
which is
seen
a shame,
one.
which is a shame really, because they're such phenomenal records, and the fact that they're not available for people to enjoy, either streaming, reissues, they're just it's a shame that they're not out there. So
go out on eBay and just look for the first album on CD. It's not cheap.
No, I think you can get them.
Both of them.
If you can find them, $20-$25, which is not cheap for a CD.
But I'm just saying,
it's not. And they're not readily available, and so it's, if you find one in the wild, pick it up. So that's my second choice this round would be the Badlands records. First
Very
one,
cool.
Voodoo Highway.
So I'm assuming that Badlands record you're holding is the original Atlantic pressing, right?
Yeah, I got lucky, and I do have a pressing. It's actually signed by all 4 members. I had Ray sign it before he died, so I was fortunate to get this, find one in the gotta be early 90s before Ray died. So late 80s, early 90s before, vinyl. They didn't press a lot of them because they weren't pressing a ton of vinyl. And
89 was very late. when the industry, quote unquote, quit pressing vinyl, even though it was very limited, it's generally thought that 1991 was it. And then after that, they did press the Foo Fighters record, but it was very limited. But 91 was it. So, yeah. So 89 is pretty
late. It seems like a lot of, at least the hard rock and metal vinyl that was pressed in that era was sort of more for the record clubs that were still shipping that kind of thing. So like they were licensing it out to those record clubs that still had vinyl as an option. But
yeah, you're 100% correct.
I think the death of vinyl was 1986. I bought Boston Third Stage 3 times at Payless, and all of them were crappy.
Well, you're talking about pressing quality.
Yeah, they was terrible.
It just depends upon what label you're talking about.
You'd think Epic Records would have done better.
Was that on Epic?
Columbia, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
The first 4 Bostons were on Epic.
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
Island Records continued to quality press U2 albums well into the 90s.
There you go. All right. Thank you, David. We've learned a lot here tonight. So let's see if the elder can teach us something. All right, Elder,
teach us something, Elder.
Because we're going to go a little long. So go ahead, Elder.
Well, first off, hearing about that, you can't get Badlands anywhere. It makes me feel even worse for Jakey Lee. He gets screwed out of Ozzy royalties. He can't pick up on any royalties from streaming.
Exactly.
Reissues or anything, and then he gets shot. So I don't know. Anyway,
Jesus.
I just seriously though, I would just like to know what is the deal with this Badlands record. I don't understand why we can't, because it's really sought after. It just doesn't make none of this makes sense.
Who goes on behind the scenes and what little things are.
If someone in the comments knows anything about this Badlands record and why we can't get it, please leave a comment. All right, go ahead, Elder.
All right, so my next one is going to be Metallica's first 2, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. They didn't invent thrash metal necessarily, but these 2 albums definitely helped bring it to the forefront. And Kill 'Em All is like a little bit more of a punkier type of thing where they kind of matured more with the songwriting and lyrics on Ride the Lightning. So there's those. And then my next 2 are going to be, he was around for a while, but this was his first solo band, Ronnie James Dio with Holy Diver, and Last in Line. Definitely great 1-2 punch. You didn't know for sure what he was going to do after leaving Black Sabbath. I didn't know if he was going to go in a totally different direction being out of Sabbath, or if he was still going to go with hard rock. And obviously he went even a little heavier with his first 2 albums. So there you go. So Dio.
I always go back and forth as to whether I like Last in Line or Holy Diver better. They're both so equally good. And
yeah, definitely. Same here. I don't know which one I like better either. Same here. It's goes back and forth.
Yeah,
those are both really good picks.
Yeah,
I'm looking up the Rock Candy Badlands record. There are 2 copies on Discogs, and they're both, one's in Italy and one's in Switzerland, and one's like $23 plus shipping, of course, and they're not available in the United States. They're not shipping to the United States.
Badlands has posthumously become such a legendary band. You would think those would get reissued just by someone.
Yeah, it's weird.
There's a record club edition of the Badlands CD on here, and it's $35 for $6 shipping. So it's not like you probably could keep looking. I bet you they're all going to be $35 for a CD. I'd say is expensive. So you're probably looking at that, and God knows how much the Rock Candy one is. I just think it's fabulous.
Right? Even the band members don't agree on why this thing's not reissued, right? Which is where it's bizarre. If you look at a Jakey Lee's version versus Greg Chaselon's, they're saying different things, whether it's had to do with Ray or whether it had to do with, a vendetta by the record company. But it's just, like I said, these are such great records.
Pretty long vendetta to carry.
What's that?
Pretty long vendetta to carry, Record company's still pissed.
It seems like, is there there's been rumors that there's some kind of legal action that prevents the Atlantic from ever releasing these things and earning money off them. But
are those streamable? Like, are they on Apple Music?
They are not.
No,
they're not streamable on any of the streaming services. You just can't get them.
It's just so weird.
Yeah.
All right, Elder, that was your next two?
Yep.
Sorry, I was looking at Badlands and not paying attention. All right, Jeff, what's your next two? Heck, if you want to do your three, go ahead, and then you can do your three. Go ahead if you want.
All right. The next two are definitely breaking my own rule, because in both of these cases, I might like the third record better, but there's a natural breaking point here. So first one I'm going with is Molly Hatchet and Flirting with Disaster. Those are pretty strong records. People still, but I think those songs still make it into the set list. I don't really know. I don't, enough people are gone that I haven't been paying attention, but that's where the classics are. And I love Beating the Odds, and I love that guy that they had on vocals for that one album and no other album. I might like Beating the Odds better, maybe, but they're different. So, and it's not really as classic an album, I guess. Those first two are the thing. And the next one is going to be even worse, because I probably like the third record better here, and I'm probably going to get flamed for this. But the Cars and Candio are strong ass pop records, new wave. They're tight. They're really well constructed. They're well recorded, as far as I can tell. The band knew what they wanted to do, and they did a really fantastic job of it. And I like Panorama because it's kind of weird and a little dark sounding, and they're it's like the album that they made at 4 a.m. after making the first two or something. But I don't think it's got the classic status that the first two have. There's all kinds of hits on the first two, and Panorama is a thing that it's more of a Contrarian album, I think. And then if you want me to just...
You might as well, since you're there, go ahead and do your other pick.
All right. Third one is never talked about on this channel at all. English Beat. I Just Can't Stop It, and What Happened.
Yeah.
And the third album, Special Beat Service, is, of course, the one with all the big hits that actually anyone would know, but it's less ska, and it sounds more like they're moving to the general public. And the first two are different from each other, very, but they're still ska bands at that. They're still ska records at that point. And I really like two-tone ska a hell of a lot. So that's, and I don't think there's much weak stuff on either of those records. There just isn't. So, and really, there aren't a lot of bands that sounded anything like that again.
I can't think anything.
There's other two-tone stuff, but the Specials don't sound anything like English Beat.
Selector doesn't sound like English Beat.
No. The third wave stuff, the Toasters and all the other stuff doesn't sound like, Bad Manners didn't sound like this. Nobody sounded like this. I have a lot of respect for the English Beat. So that would be the rest of my picks.
Super. Awesome. Great stuff. Rand, what's your final pick?
I have an answer for you.
Well, I would hope. Are you talking
Gillan.
Badlands or what?
Ray Gillan. Yeah.
Okay, we have an answer, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll read it. It said, but Gillan, knowing he was infected, knowingly slept with multiple women, passing the virus and ruining the lives of those women and their families. Although details are sketchy about the number of women involved, The end result was that Atlantic discontinued production of both Badlands albums and locked up the master tapes. Although this was normal practice for a slow-selling catalog album, the band always maintained a solid fan base, and there were always requests for a reissue. Although some indie labels expressed interest due to lawsuits brought by the infected women, have forever prevented the album from being reissued.
That's why. Yeah.
There you go.
So how did
They'd be
that
getting all the
slip
royalties.
out?
They'd
And
be
how
getting
did
all the royalties probably or something if they would sue and get the
yeah?
royalties and stuff.
Atlantic got scared.
Yeah.
And do you
I'll
think
blame-
that? And I'm just saying, since Rock Candy's a British label, the laws over there are different. But evidently,
They mentioned
someone
that.
raised a stink and they pulled them. But
They mentioned that somebody said in response to that article, said you'd think a company like Rock Candy would jump on this because the demand's so great.
yeah,
Nobody wants to touch it.
But okay, Grant, you make a point. It would be Ray Gillen's estate that would be liable for that, not Badlands. So it
Yeah.
would just be the royalties that Ray Gillen would make.
you would think.
Yeah, but it's public.
Mm.
It's public. What do you call it?
Public
Perception.
relations. Yeah.
They put out
Yeah.
It's not a rumor. There is real things going on. So you could see these companies just going, oh no, I don't want
We're
nothing to
not
do
going
with
to touch
that.
it. But
Yeah.
just because
Uranium.
Rock Candy's a British label, there's a lot, if you look online, they can license a lot more things than we can ever
But the
license
master
here.
tapes are locked up forever. I just read that.
Well, they might have did digital clones of the CDs.
I don't know. I've
There's
never
a
heard
lot
of
of
that.
bands that
But I
have-
do have a question about Ray Gillen.
that.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I want to ask a question. The only Ray Gillen that I own is on the Eternal Idol of the remaster of the album by Black Sabbath.
But he's not on
Apparently there's a-
Eternal Idol, is he?
No,
There's
there's
a
a version of Eternal Idol.
Yeah, there's a version of it
with
on
him
it.
on
If you
there.
get there's a reissue that had the version of his.
That's what I'm talking
doing
about.
it.
That's what I'm talking about. What do you guys prefer, him or Tony Martin?
Tony Martin.
Wow.
Well, how can that
I don't know.
get
His
rele-
version is really good. He sounds really good on that Internal.
I
Idol.
like Tony Martin.
Well,
Tony
how
Martin's
can we
good,
have a-
but I mean,
how-
you could see why Ray Gillen was chosen maybe to be the singer.
How can
because-
we have a
Tony
Ray
Iommi-
Gillen version out with all this other lawsuit crap?
This happened before.
Well, he had nothing to do with the writing of those songs. I don't think.
Okay, so he's just
No,
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
don't
he
think he
did.
really
The
wrote
Eternal
any of
Idol
those.
is 1987, right?
80.
I think he did write those songs, and I think Tony
But
was
didn't
talking
Badlands come out in 88,
89.
Yeah,
right?
it was later. Yeah,
89? Yeah, so
Yeah,
this
that
is
was
2 years
later.
I
before all
think.
that. Nobody knew anything.
yeah.
I remember reading
Tony
Martin
Iommi
said
was
it
probably
hard
going,
to
"Oh my God!"
All right, come on.
Tony's losing his shit. Anyway,
Anyway,
what's
I
your
just
last-
wondered.
What's your last
Yeah.
pick?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is the most important album ever in my life. Is this? God dang it!
Never,
You never go
seen
the
it
right
before.
way. Yeah. Well, anyways, their second punch was this. This has 6 covers on it. The first one I showed you has 1. I don't care. This is a rock and roll album. It's great. I love this record. Everything about it. I've listened to this to death over my 55 years it's been out. But my God, the Beatles' second album and Meet the Beatles, I think are the 1-2 punch for my life. It turned me into a musician, made me want to be a Beatle, maybe want to be a guitar player. Then I went on to teach myself keyboards. I mean, it's just so important, those records. They shaped my entire life.
Can't argue with that. All right, cool. Thank you, Rand. Can't.
You're welcome.
I don't know if you can beat the Beatles, but we'll try. All right, Andrew, what's your
Beat
final
the
pick?
Beatles.
Right. Yeah. Well, first I want to say cheers to Jeff for bringing up English Beat. And yeah, I'm seeing Ranking Roger and Dave Wakeling open up for Hall & Oates as general public, and they sang mostly English Beat songs, which was
What year was that?
85, like the big band
Oh,
boom
that
tour.
would be-
Yeah.
I saw Big Band Boom Tour. No, wait a
Yeah.
minute. You said 86?
85.
85. No,
I
I
think
saw
that-
H2O Tour twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, General Public opened up for them on Big Bam Boom, and I was excited for that way more than Hall and Oates, just because English Beat was so great. But Fine and Cannibals are good too. English Beat's one of those bands that literally every song that they ever did was good. Like not great. I mean, they've got some great songs, but there's not a bad song in that catalog. So.
Yeah.
All right, so for my last pick, it's another band that I've brought up on Contrarians before that don't normally get named on Contrarians, and it violates some rules because they technically had a first album that was a live album, but their first two studio albums, and I'm talking Primus, Frizzle Fry, which is an amazing album, followed by Sailing the Seas of Cheese,
yes.
which is another amazing album. And I will say, so I saw them on this tour in a small club in Atlanta, Georgia, when they came out, and no one was there. And then the next year they came back touring with this, and they had become the shit. And it was amazing to see that transformation. But again, if you don't know Primus, they're an amazing. Those two albums, especially. I mean, they've been good throughout their career. Pork Soda, I think, is the next one, and that's a good one too. Those first two albums are just amazing. That first one, really good.
Yeah,
love him. Saw him twice. Yeah, I saw him do the Rush album, Farewell to Kings.
I really wish I had seen that. COVID messed
well, I
up.
saw that too.
I saw them on Ozfest, and Buckethead was playing guitar.
Oh wow, that would be
that was
amazing.
wild.
Yeah. I saw him with Asia.
No, that's not Buckethead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bumblefoot.
Bumblefoot. I get them mixed up. These bees. My God.
I think they're both in Guns N' Roses at one time. So
Bumblefoot's a good guitar player, though, and he sounds just
incredible.
like John Wetton when he sings.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
So
Didn't he,
Greg
Rand? I swear to God, it sounded like John Wetton.
Yeah, he nailed it. And that guy is incredible. He can.
Yeah.
I think he can do everything Guthrie Govan can do.
Yeah, Bumblefoot, absolutely brilliant. All right, cool. David, what's your final pick?
All right, I know we're over. I'll just
we're good.
Last word on Badlands, since we've spent so much time talking about it. I'm just going to say that because we spent so much time talking about it, and because we talked about you looked on Discogs and stuff. I know that there is. I wasn't a victim of this, but I know that there is a large counterfeit market for those discs. So if you're buying CDs off eBay or Discogs, just be cautious. There's a lot of people technology is much better. You can repro the booklets and all of that pretty easily now. And I know that there's, quite a few counterfeit versions of those two records flying around, CD versions, CDRs that they've sort of made booklets for and stuff. So, buyer beware. Just be aware if the deal's too good to be true, maybe it is. So just be careful out there. My last pick is maybe not my favorite. I do like them, but not my favorite band of the ones I mentioned. But when I think of 1-2 Punches, this band always comes to mind, and that is our friends in Rat. So right in the 80s, but do the Out of the Cellar. And I know they had an EP too, but I'm going to do this just like I did with Queensryche. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say Out of the Cellar and Invasion of Your Privacy as a 1-2 punch for Rat. And I think the thing that I always think of Rat is interesting is that this is a band that sort of, obviously reached triple platinum on Out of the Cellar and double platinum, at least the last certification for Invasion of Your Privacy, really without a power ballad, which drove a lot of the 80s bands really over sort of the platinum and double platinum levels. Really was a big power ballad on MTV, and Rat didn't have that. I don't think they ever had that really, the over the top, power ballad that, but really achieved, huge success. And I think the interesting, the trajectory of Rat, both these two records reach, I think, number 7 on the charts. Like I said, triple platinum and double platinum respectively, but really declined as their career progressed. I mean, really they peaked it Out of the Cellar in terms of they didn't have sort of the reverse trajectory where they built up some albums and then sort of hit like maybe a Bon Jovi trajectory that went this way. Their trajectory really was this way, right? I mean, I think I looked up, Dancing Undercover. I think it went single platinum and made it to 36 on the charts. Sort of a far cry from the first two. I think their trajectory really in terms of commercial sales went down, over the years. Now, I happen to prefer Invasion of Privacy as a record, just my personal taste. And I like the entire catalog, but I think similar to like an AC/DC, they have a very signature sound. You're like Rat or you don't like Rat. I mean, I think, put it on, it doesn't deviate much, album to album throughout their career, where other bands we've talked about, like a U2 or even a Queensryche, over the period of their career, their sound has evolved and changed and done different things to varying levels of success. Certainly, if you listen to like what Grant had mentioned, that Here and the Now Forever album is certainly so different than The Warning, right? Their career, their sound changes, whereas like a Rat maybe doesn't as much. So you like it, you don't like it. But I think in terms of 1-2 punch, I think of, Rat comes to mind and sort of discounting the EP. But Out of the Cellar, Invasion of Privacy are the two I'm going to go with my last choice. Rat.
Excellent. I want to say I saw Stephen Piercy on the 80s cruise in last March, and they did an interview with him, and he said that, I don't know if it's come out yet, but he said that he secured the rights to the EP and was planning on getting that reissued. So I don't know where he is on that, but he had the right. He said he had the rights.
Expanded, maybe, hopefully.
He didn't go into it, and he didn't give any kind of date or kind of any indication of when, but he said we just secured the rights to it. So
yeah, I know they
hopefully it comes out.
The box set, the Atlantic Years box set, they re-released all the vinyl without the EP on a box set last year, and I think this year they re-released sort of those same 4 or 5 records on colored vinyl, and I think with sort of an extra song, and then but I think we're still waiting for that EP to get re-released.
But Wanted Man came out on the Rat's Greatest Hits. I mean, that did come out, and did another track off of that. Were there 2 tracks on there from the EP that were on the Greatest Hits album?
Well, Wanted Man's on this record.
Well, Back for More.
Back for More.
Yeah.
The Brain.
But on yeah, I do have like one of the Rat and Roll or something.
That on there.
I think that had You Think You're Tough? Maybe.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. You think You're Tough, and what was the other track? When there 2 off the EP?
Yeah, I want to think. There was Sweet Cheater, and there was
The Brain is a terrible thing.
Well, and no, they only did because there's 4 songs on the EP, right?
Yeah.
So it was like I think Sweet Cheater and Walking. They did a cover of Walking the Dog. So
maybe
it was
just the one
You
track.
Think You're Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did come out on something. But of course, the EP got released on CD, but now it's expensive. So hopefully it comes out. Yes.
When I was watching MTV like a lot when Rat came out, I noticed something that they were playing Round and Round like 4 times a day, every single day. And I think that oversaturated that band on certain people. But one thing attracted me to that band was that Warren DeMartini, their lead guitar player, was bragging about this band called King Crimson. He says, you got to listen to this group. They got Discipline, they got Beat, they got... I don't think the 3rd one had come out yet, the yellow one. What's it called? Three of a Perfect Pair. But anyway, he's bragging about that. And I go, well, hell, if he knows about that band, maybe I should check into Rat. But see, you can bring in prog fans that way. If you got a guy in your band that talks about, just like Eddie Van Halen was bragging about Alan Holdsworth.
Tell the World is the other track.
Yes, okay.
So it's right. Tell the World and
You Think You're Tough?
You Think You're Tough came out on the Greatest Hits.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and which I didn't know, maybe it was Back for More is on the EP and also on Out of the Cellar.
Back for More is on the EP.
I think it's different versions. It's on different versions.
Different
though.
versions, maybe, version. But it's actually on both of these.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that, but yeah, I think Back for More
They sound the same, but you
Yeah.
can tell the production's a little
Well,
different.
let's pray that Stephen Piercy comes through and puts these back out. I mean, the EP.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping. All right. Okay, Elder.
All right. Well, since we were talking Badlands, I just had to show off my 2 Badlands. They CDs.
Now, are those counterfeit or?
No. Those are Atlantic.
I know. I'm giving you
those are
shit.
Atlantic, but
Yeah.
so there you go.
always-
And I have a vinyl. I have the vinyl too of the first one. But anyway, so my number 1 is going to be another Black Sabbath singer, but this one is also going to be Ozzy Osbourne, of course. After he left Black Sabbath, a lot of people didn't have any hope for him doing anything, and then Sharon took him and cleaned him up a little, and found Randy Rhoads and recorded 2 great debut and sophomore albums with that, and influenced a lot of guitar players in the process. And also, so do you want me to also, can I do honorable mentions real quick? And you want me
Sure.
to? All right, I'm going to go with Van Halen, 1 and 2, Motley Crue's first 2, and Megadeth's first 2, and Twisted Sister's first 2. There you go.
All right. Anybody else have any honorables before we wrap it up? Go ahead, Rand.
Steve Hillage, Fish Rising. It's Steve Hillage L. Phenomenal albums.
Isn't L produced by Todd Rundgren?
Yep. The whole band is Utopia with Steve Hillage
There you
on the
go.
guitar.
It's a long lost Utopia album.
Long Lost Utopia. Most people don't know that. I'm surprised you brought it up.
That's because I'm in the know, Rand.
You are in the know.
Jeff, did you had your hand up?
Yeah. Actually, for the next one of these, I want to just consult with Elder and take all his cast-offs because his honorable mentions were pretty damn good.
He's good, isn't he?
Yeah. I only got one. Sisters of
Okay.
Mercy. First and Last and Always, and Floodland. I like Vision Thing real well, but I think everybody that's a big Sisters fan kind of thinks that most of them think Floodland is the peak. A few are maybe going to like First and Last and Always. And I don't know anybody whose favorite Sisters is Vision Thing. I mean, I love
I
that
don't
album,
either.
but it's got horrible competition. It's just not fair. So that's my
All
my
right.
one honorable.
All right, Jeff, go ahead. I mean, Andrew, shit. Sorry, brain.
Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, and Plastic Surgery Disasters. 2 great hardcore
There you go.
albums.
I didn't know Dead Kennedys was going to pop up, but all right. Good.
Yeah, very good.
You got another one, Rand?
Yeah, Queen 1, Queen 2. My God.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
Has anybody heard that new mix on the Queen 1 yet?
No.
No, I didn't know there was a new mix.
No, there's a new
Yeah.
mix, and I haven't heard it
Yeah.
at all.
Oh.
I think I'd like to hear it just to see what they did with it.
Think it would clean it up? I don't know.
How do you clean up Roy Thomas Baker in 1973?
Pretty hard. Pretty.
Guy was amazing.
Yeah, but just, well, yeah, I don't know how you would do it.
I mean,
All
I
right.
know the equipment is better today, but
It's still recorded on old equipment.
oh
So,
my God.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Interesting. I mean,
Look at some of those recordings back in the 50s and the 40s. Absolutely beautiful sounding. So
I
it's, it's not really that. It's the engineers didn't know how to record the rock and roll. Anyway,
Yeah.
All you need
David,
is
do you have an
ears.
honorable?
I'll just quickly mention, since I'm hanging out in the 80s, I'm going to mention Night Ranger.
Yes.
Hey, there you
Probably
go.
best known for one song and maybe largely considered a one-hit wonder. Dawn Patrol and Midnight Madness, 5 top 40 singles, both at least at last certification are gold. I probably would argue that Midnight Madness is probably a platinum album by now. But anyway, quick shout out to Night Ranger.
Well, I
Excellent.
got a quick story about Night Ranger. It won't take 10 seconds. I saw him live in Eureka,
It will take
California,
more.
and
Okay.
Jack Blades comes out on the microphone and goes, "We don't do any slow songs because we think slow songs suck." And 4 or 5 months later, Sister Christian is everywhere.
Was that a Jack Blade song, though?
I don't
Did he
care.
write it?
It
Hey,
made him an
that's
well, the
idiot.
drummer sings it. Kelly
Right.
Keegan
Yep.
sings it.
Kelly
Kelly's-
Keegan,
I don't
yeah,
know.
but it made, and maybe the rest of the band was going, "What?"
Maybe Jack was out of his mind. I don't know.
He was.
Andrew, did you have something else?
No, just
all right. Let's wrap this dog
Echo
up.
Sisters of Mercy, because those are two great albums.
All right, let's wrap this dog
Tell
up.
me you love me.
Rand, shut up. If we can keep Rand quiet,
This is getting out of control now.
God, Don, I thought we were having fun. Now it's just out of control. I want to thank everybody except Rand, Andrew, David, the Elder, Jeff. This was a loose conversation, but we're here talking music. Hopefully we turned you on to some records maybe you haven't heard. That's what it's about. The Contrarians is all about talking music. So if you'd like to come on these panels, we'd love to have you. We have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel that way. If you don't want to do that, and that's too much commitment, we have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. Would like that. We also take donations. It's just a community here on the Contrarians. So if you'd like to join it, we'd love to see you. So anyway, gentlemen, another great talk. We went a little long, but you know what? It doesn't matter because we're talking music. So, gentlemen, if I don't see you, well, there's something next week, I think. I don't know who's on it. If I don't see you, have a good rest of your holiday. Have a good New Year's, and we'll reconvene back here. So, everybody, we'll see you. Please subscribe if you haven't. All right. See you.